Wow, what happened? We have a leak, mildew?
Okay.
So that is what I thought. My worry to that is that when I came in, I smelled the mildew. We have to be careful that.
That's what it was.
Okay, if everyone can find their seats, silence their cell phones. We're about to get started. I'm going to do the same. Okay, good evening, everyone. We are on the record. Today is Monday, the 9th day of January in the year 2023. Happy New Year, everybody. This is a City Council caucus meeting of the Jersey City Municipal Council. We had a scheduled 4 p.m. start. The clock on my cell phone is showing 4:04 p.m. May we have a roll call for the commencement of this caucus? Councilperson Ridley.
Here.
Councilperson Prinzary.
Here.
Councilperson Baggiano is not here. Councilperson Soleil will be arriving late. Councilperson Solomon, no, he actually
No.
advised me. Sorry. Councilperson Gilmore. Councilperson DeGise.
Here.
Councilperson Rivera.
Here.
And Council President Waterman.
Here.
Okay, we have 7 members in attendance at 4:04 p.m. I'm sorry for the noise, everyone. So there was a little bit of a leak in the council chambers with the heating system. So that's why you hear the fans. So just make sure that when you're speaking, council members, and also BA and Corporation Council, that you speak into the mic, because we have to speak over the noise that we're hearing in the meeting. On behalf of Council President Waterman, in accordance with New Jersey Public Laws of 1975, Chapter 231, the Open Public Meetings Act, also known as the Sunshine Law, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the posting on the bulletin board of the first floor of City Hall. The annual notice, which is the schedule of meetings and caucuses of the Municipal Council for the calendar year 2023, and filed in the office of the City Clerk on Thursday, December 15th, 2022. In addition, at its time of its preparation, the agenda of this meeting was similarly disseminated on Friday, January 6, 2023 at 3:10 p.m. to the Municipal Council, Mayor, Business Administrator, Corporation Council, and the local newspapers, and posted on the city's website. So I can certify as to our total compliance with the Sunshine Law. I see that Councilperson Soleil is present. We'll mark him present at 4:05 p.m. So we now have 8 council members present at 4:05 p.m. Council President, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Happy New Year.
New Year.
Well, our first director is Director Shea.
Good evening, Council President, council members, President Pro Tempore. The Department of Public Safety has 5 resolutions on the agenda tonight. The first one is Resolution 23009, agenda number 10.9, and it's connected to the next one, 2310, 10.10. They're both to Millennium Communications under state contract. 10.9 is for the fiber that will be run connecting the annex complex buildings and the new public safety building there. And 10.10 is to run the actual fiber lines from the city to the annex and the new public safety building. So 10.10 is the larger one, 600,000 under state contract. That's to run the 2 fiber lines in. That'll handle all of our traffic, the secure traffic as required by the state police for running people's names, license plates, people's information, as well as the video cameras and all of our video images. And then 10.9 is between the buildings, the health building, the public safety, so that we can communicate back and forth. Thank you. The next is 23.011, agenda item 10.11. It's a resolution authorizing the award of a contract to Lease Servicing Center, Government Capital, for a 5-year lease of 25 2023 Ford Interceptors. Those are basic Ford Explorers with the police package attached. It's going through the cooperative. It's called Sourcewell, but it's formally, you probably know it as the National Joint Powers Alliance for the Department of Public Safety. The Sourcewell Co-op just is approved by the state. This is going to pick up 25 cars. The last cars we got were back in 2020. All of them have over 50,000 miles on them. We wear these cars out. They ride for 24/7 and they just pick up a lot of mileage. This lease is a 5-year lease. The amount of the year, total amount is $1,487,758. It's spread out over the 5 years and the first payment is due in 2024. At the end of the lease, I should say, at the end of the lease, the cars become ours for $0. Next, Resolution 23012, as a resolution authorizing an award of a contract to Turnout Fire and Safety for the purchase of uniforms for our crossing guards. Our crossing guards, we have contractual obligations to provide them with basic uniforms and foul weather gear. Turnout has been our vendor for this since the beginning. And again, it's through the Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative, so it's the state-approved price. This contract is for $19,730, and we'll get all of our current crossing guards, including the newly hired ones, up to speed.
Director, with regards to the crossing guards, what's the plan to have all of the necessary intersections manned? Because I see in some, what's the plan to have all of the necessary intersections manned? Because I see in some schools, we still don't have crossing guards at certain intersections.
We cover every intersection on our crossing guard plan. If there's no crossing guard, we cover it with uniformed police officers. There may be intersections that have not been authorized for a crossing guard yet. We get applications for those through the council. They go to our traffic safety, Travis Ragland, and then he does a traffic study at that corner to see whether there's enough traffic, foot traffic, to justify assigning a crossing guard. Because once we assign a crossing guard, it's forever. So anyone that's covered, if you want to send me the ones that you think should have crossing guards and are not being covered, I'll do an investigation and get back to you.
Yeah, because there's some intersections. I know at one point the crossing guard was at the top of 41 school in particular, and then they moved them, and they were saying that because we didn't have enough crossing guards.
Yeah, no,
But we are properly staffed.
Yeah, well, we always need more. Crossing guards is a job that people take and then they drop off on us, and it's a job that a lot of people don't come in. So anybody who knows anyone who wants, we always need more crossing guards. And we also use that as a advancement measure. A lot of them move up to better jobs in the city. Once they prove, once they come to work for us and do a good job, they move on. So it's a job we're hiring for 24/7, crossing guards. But we have enough to cover now. And again, if there's an intersection that should be covered by 41 school, we'll put a uniformed police officer there if there's no crossing guard. So just let me know the intersection and I'll give it to Travis.
All right.
And our final is a mirror. It's almost the same thing, 23.013. Agenda number 1013, it's a resolution authorizing award of a contract to Turnout Fire and Safety for the purchase of uniforms for our traffic unit enforcement officers through the Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative for the Department of Public Safety. This is for $33,350. It'll be coming out of the police department budget because we've got traffic under police now with Travis as the commanding officer. So we're going to be adjusting their uniform and making it a more professional look. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, council members.
Council President, before we move on, I just wanted to mark Councilperson Bongiano present at 4:11 PM. So we now have all 9 council members present at 4:11 PM. Thank you.
Good evening, President Warder and members of the council. Happy New Year to all. I have 4 resolutions before you tonight. First one is 23027. Resolution will authorize the option to renew a contract with Community Compost LLC to provide food scrap collection and consulting services for the Department of Public Works Division of Recycling. This is a first renewal of this contract. The total amount is $73,760.
Which number is that, Greg? 27.
10.27.
Director, I just
Yes.
quick questions on that one. First question is, does the contract allow us to expand any of the composting spaces, or is the contract like a set number of locations?
It's a set number of locations.
So we would have to go out to bid if we wanted to have more spaces?
Correct.
Got it. Okay. I mean, I would be interested in that because people are asking for more spaces. And the second thing is who is
If you have
responsible?
locations, just let us know. I'll give it to Director Dublin and
Great.
certainly look.
Okay, awesome. And then the second question is right now, who's responsible for the maintenance of the wood sheds? Is that DPW or?
It's a combination. If there's, there again, if it has to be replaced or has to be upgraded, just let us know and we'll take a look.
Okay, great. I think there's one or two. I'll just email you. Thank you.
Director, if we can get from Sonia a report on the amount of materials composted, the tonnage, and also what that savings that was to the city.
Councilman, we could always do a supplemental contract to add those additional spaces.
Okay, the next resolution is 23-1028. The resolution will authorize the award of a contract to Leasing Services Incorporated, DBA NCL Government Capital for a 5-year lease of 2023 Chevy Bolt electric vehicles through the Sourcewell Cooperative for DPW Automotive Maintenance. These electric vehicles will replace 8 vehicles presently assigned to the Department of Infrastructure and Sustainability Division of Engineering, Architecture, and Traffic, many of which have been in excess 10 years or more, one of which is dating back to 1999 and have exceeded their serviceability due to mechanical and safety concerns. The remaining EVs will be used to supplement and replace vehicles assigned to the city messenger services and other city departments requiring vehicle upgrades due to mechanical and safety issue. This lease is structured for a 5-year payment of $134,586.25, commencing April 30th through 2024 through April 30th, 2028, with a final buyout option of $0. The next resolution is 23-1029. Resolution will authorize the award of a contract to Leasing Services Incorporated, DBL NCL Government Capital for 5-year lease of 6 Elgin Pelican street sweepers through the Sourcewell Cooperative. The present fleet of Elgin sweepers include units purchased in 2013. 8 of those units will be removed from service and traded in. There are presently 11 Ravo sweepers in the fleet. As the units are manufactured in France, there's always a delay in obtaining necessary parts to keep the units in operation. And in addition, these units are geared more towards large parking areas as opposed to street operations. Many of the complaints you're getting from your constituents is based on assigning some of these. They're more of a vacuum type as opposed to sweepers. So once we get the new ones in place, we'll be phasing these out also. This lease is structured for a 5-year payment of $496,936.30, commencing April 30th, 2024 through April 30th, 2028, with a final option to purchase at $0.
Right, I have a few questions. With respect to,
Councilman,
current suites, the current street sweepers, for some reason, and I don't know, sometimes when I see the sweepers picking up trash, and then other times when I see the sweepers not picking up trash, is there?
probably, and the difference between that, Councilman, is the Elgins are the large ones. They call them the Pelicans with the big curved front. The Ravos are the smaller sweepers. One is a mechanical sweeper that also cleans as it picks up. The Ravo is a vacuum, so many times they oversee their capacity pretty quick.
Councilman, I mean, the bristles aren't down. Is that what you're referring to, or
No.
just the actual?
the
Okay.
Actual
And
performance.
sometimes they're transporting to their routes. That's why I was trying to just clarify.
No, so yeah, to the point, you were making, so what is it that they're full, that they're not
They're not, they don't hold the capacity of the Elgins, number one. Number two, it's a different sweeping operation. One is the brooms, and it picks the garbage up and brings it into the machine. The other one is more of a vacuum type thing. So most of the complaints we get, I know Councilman Prinzeri, we get complaints from, your office, Councilman Solomon, we get complaints, Councilman Saleh. Most of them are associated with those sweepers. They're not really effective for city operations. They're more of a flat parking light area or something like that. Once we get these in play, we're going to auction them off.
Okay.
When did you say the expected delivery date was?
We ordered 6 initially through our capital money. We're expecting them sometime late February. There's probably an 8 to 10 month lag, Councilman, from the time they're ordered till the time we get them. And the last one is Resolution 23-1030. The resolution will award a contract to J. Fletcher Kramer and Son to perform various construction services and delivery of various construction material related to structural metal work associated with the city's de-escalation/pistol range. Total amount of this contract is $100,000.
Greg, no, anybody have any questions? I just want to thank you for taking care of certain problems this past week for me, and the people of this board appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Inez Anderson, Acting Director of the Division of Preventive Medicine in the Department of Health and Human Services. I'm here to represent Resolution 23-023, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a grant award from the New Jersey Department of Health, Division of HIV, STD, and TB Services. The Jersey City HHS was approved for the grant funding from October 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 to be used for disease intervention specialists. And we will receive a grant in the amount of $115,000.
Inez, what number is that again?
It's 10.23. Resolution 23-023.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Council. I have 5 items this evening, all standard resolutions and ordinances that we prepare annually before the budget's introduced. So I'll start with item 3.1, ordinance 23001. That is to exceed the 2023 budget appropriation limits and establish a cap bank. So every year we're limited to a 2.5% increase on certain appropriation items. This would allow us to go up to 3.5%. With this, does no impact on the tax levy threshold either. Okay, the second item is 10.1, resolution 23001, authorizing approval of the 2023 temporary budget. So these are partial allocations to every department in the city, our debt service, and any other obligations that the city has. So we could start encumbering funds and, making those payments.
Quick question, Gail. Not for this resolution, but this covers the first 3 months, right? February.
Essentially, yeah.
Is it, this question for you a little bit for the law department too, legally after this first resolution, would the council have the authority to work to monthly continuing resolutions as opposed to quarterly?
Yeah, we could do it every meeting. We could do emergency temporary appropriations. It's just that budget law requires us to do this in the first 30 days of the year.
Right, understood. Okay, great.
Yeah. So Councilman, just to reiterate what Kyle was saying, this is predominantly for payroll, to make payroll, and the debt service that we want to make sure we're in tune, but we could bring it back as regularly as the council recommends.
Next 2 items are similar, 10.2 and 10.3. These are established in the 2023 Art and Cultural Trust tax rate, as well as the 2023 open space tax rate. We're going to remain at 1/4 penny per $100 of the assessed valuation. So in total, that would be 1.1 million for each trust.
So council, we just brought back the current rate from last year, and last year we collected about 900,000. This year it'll be about 1.1 at the current rate. We're open to discussing the council. I know some council members sit on some of those boards if they want to change anything, but we felt at least bringing it back flat at this point, but we could discuss before Wednesday if there's any questions.
And I know, for the Open Space Trust Fund and for the Arts and Culture Trust Fund, their committees also suggested that we keep the rate flat, especially in particular with Arts and Culture, because that is a new fund being dispersed year over year, and the Open Space Trust Fund was put on pause for all of 2020. So 2021 was when it went up to match the same amount, and we're rolling over into the next year for that too.
And just to confirm with the council, these are separate trust funds, so the aggregate of those dollars raised by taxes go to separate bank accounts and don't interact with the city. It's strictly dollars used for those boards.
All right, and the last item is 10.5, Resolution 23005, authorizing us to use a 3-year average for our tax collection percentage in order to calculate this year's appropriation for reserve for uncollected taxes. We don't have an actual tax collection percentage yet. This is just preliminary in the event that there is a dip in the collection percentage from last year. All right, thank you.
Director Patel. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. Okay, I have 3 resolutions today for the Department of Infrastructure, Division of Transportation, starting with agenda item 10.24, resolution 23-024. This is a resolution authorizing the use of competitive contracting to award a contract for consulting services to develop a traffic calming toolkit. This would be funded by a grant that the city received by the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, the NJTPA, in the amount of $200,000. And the purpose of doing this study is to update the menu of traffic calming measures and interventions the city has at its disposal and that we use to address a series of different types of traffic safety issues, and to sort of expand upon the work that we've been doing in the last few years, specifically last year through our Vision Zero work that resulted in 0 traffic fatalities on city streets. So just expanding that work and incorporating more strategies into our toolkit.
How long is the study for?
Typically, these studies through this specific grant program take about 12 months, but the procurement process is typically anywhere from 3 to 6 months, just because of the NJTPA being an external entity and them having their own set of regulations. So if this resolution is passed, we would then release the RFP, which typically takes a month for us to get responses. We would come back to council to award the contract, and then the study would start soon after that. Okay, the next resolution is agenda item 10.25, resolution 23-025. This is a resolution supplementing the manual of bus stop designations in the city, repealing bus stops located at several locations on Central Avenue, one on Grove Street and one on Montgomery Street. And the purpose for removing these bus stops is different on all 3 streets. So on Central Avenue, as a part of the streetscape project, the city received several comments from both the Central Avenue SID and community groups about the frequency of the bus stops. There were instances where they were located on every other block. And so as a result of bus stop consolidation, those locations were out of the design plan when the streetscape project was completed. So they currently do not exist right now on the street, and this is just a formality. And then the locations on Grove Street and Montgomery Street are being removed because of the change in the route of the ANC bus line, which no longer goes through the route where these stops are located.
Next one.
Okay, the next resolution is 10.26, sorry, agenda item 10.26, resolution number 23-026. This is a resolution authorizing the city to submit a grant application and to execute a grant with the New Jersey Department of Transportation's Local Freight Impact Fund. This would be for a project on Pacific Avenue and Caven Point Avenue for improvements to both to sections of both corridors, which would include things like curb and sidewalk restoration or implementation, drainage improvements, repaving of the streets, as well as the installation of, or the continuation of a two-way protected bikeway on Pacific Avenue. And the total grant amount that the city is requesting is $2,214,744. So this would be Pacific Avenue south of Municipal, going past the railroad tracks where the New Jersey light rail tracks are, and then all the way up to Caven Point Avenue, including improvements on Caven Point Avenue between Pacific and Garfield.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Tricia?
No, it's both.
It is both. Yes, that in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm here to present agenda number 10.6, resolution 23-006. It's a resolution authorizing the replacement of a third-party tax sale certificate to Gregory Judge.
10.6, Resolution 23-006.
Say it again, because they was looking.
It's a resolution 23.006, agenda number 10.6, authorizing the replacement of a third-party tax sale certificate to Gregory Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cynthia?
Cynthia.
Hi, good evening, Council, President Council Waterman and rest of the fellow councilors. My name is Cynthia Vasquez. I'm the interim division director for injury prevention for the Health and Human Services Department. We're here to present two resolutions. Resolution 10.19, resolution number 23-19 for authorizing the acceptance of a grant award for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And we are also here to present on resolution item number 10.22, resolution 23-022, a resolution authorizing contracts with various vendors for the delivery of substance abuse prevention and education programs for the Department of Health and Human Services through the Municipal Drug Alliance Program.
Any questions on 19?
Yeah, with respect to 19, these funds are not going to cover salaries, correct? These are just going to be, the funds are going to be allocated for the services?
Correct, training. It would be training courses.
Okay.
Questions on 10.19? Any questions on 10.22? Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Matthew?
Good afternoon. I'm here on item 3.3, ordinance 23-003. This is a ordinance adopting amendments to the land development ordinance regarding micro businesses licensed as cannabis establishments or distributors. To be specific, this is not inclusive of retailers. This is only pertinent or applies to class 1 through 4 cannabis establishments or distributors. So those are your more industrial type of cannabis businesses. The original ordinance was interpreted by the Division of Zoning to be more restrictive than what was intended. There are two attachments to this ordinance. One shows in yellow highlight the new language as well as the struck language. And then there is also another attachment showing an interpretation of the Division of Zoning or the zoning officer stating its restrictions that they've interpreted. So the intent or the purpose of this ordinance is to better align with the original ordinance or the intent of the original ordinance, which was to be more equitable, give more opportunity to micro businesses. Right now, it's considered to be more restrictive towards micro businesses, which is not what we wanted. Have any questions?
Questions? Okay, thank you. Shirley?
Good evening, Council President, council members, and Happy New Year. I'm here for Agenda 10.4, Resol 23-004, resolution to cancel outstanding stale data checks. As you are aware, our office has been working hard to cancel out the stale data checks. So this will bring us for current fund, $544,307.35, and a little bit more on the other funds.
Who, what is our, form of communication to these individuals or entities that we owe this money to?
Again, this is still prior year from 2017 to 2020.
No, this,
This is still from the long list that we were working on from 2017 to 2020. So going forward, we send letters out to people. We make sure that everybody's cashing their check. We reissue checks, stop payments, we do voids. So from the moment that I've gotten to Treasury to now, we don't have lists that are like this. But this required more research because they were so outdated.
well, these ones are not, these are 18, 19, and 20, just 4 or 5 years ago.
Right. So when I first came into Treasury, the first thing that I did was open up a new bank account and start fresh. But I didn't have access to this list. So now that I did, we did the research and we know that we can now cancel these.
So how many, because we just approved a resolution with regards to stale checks, how many, is this the last of the stale checks that we have in inventory?
I don't know. This is from the vendor clearing account that I'm aware of, 4885. We still have to work with Bank of America. This is further back. But this clears up account number 4885.
And these are individuals or entities that's owed these checks?
It
Do we
could
still
be-
do business with any of these people that's?
I don't know who they are. All I have is numbers, dates, numbers, and amounts.
You can't see the act.
So what I did is that I went into the FOW, made sure that they were still outstanding, that they weren't cashed. I mean, the list was longer than this. So what I did is anything that was cashed, we removed from the list and did a true reconciliation. So this is what I know is still outstanding, truly outstanding.
So you haven't sent any letters out to the recipient?
Not for
respect to
these.
this?
Not for these. This is beyond 2020.
No, I get that part, but I'm trying to figure out if we're constantly keep voting on stale checks, and since you have been there,
That
you
doesn't
have,
happen anymore. No, now we contact the vendor, we void checks and reissue, make sure that we have correct addresses. If there is a check that hasn't been cashed, we contact the division or department. We let them know that there's a check sitting out there. Please contact the vendor. We send the check to the department, make sure that they send it out to the vendor.
so who is going to be, who identify the recipients of the checks? Like, how do we know who these checks are going to?
From 2017 to 2020, I mean, the information is in FOW, but right now we can cancel according to the state, we can cancel them and put the money back. If any vendor does want, they file a claim for it, we have to pay them.
Yeah,
Well, I guess my issue is, since you have been in charge, right?
That doesn't happen.
I know that, but since you have been there, have anyone on your team made efforts to reach out to the people that had stale checks from 2020 and 2019?
No, I only got this list in December. So in December, all I did was work on this list to see what was still outstanding. So we did not reach out to anyone.
Why not?
Because we needed to cancel out, and because right now, because they're so stale, all we have a right to do is to cancel them out. So that money was already, we can put that back into, put it back into current fund. We could actually reach out to people and say, hey, you have money sitting out there, and they can file a claim for it.
So at what point can they no longer access this money?
After 3 years, they don't have a right to it anymore.
Okay.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of stale dated check fraud as well when it comes to municipalities, so it's important to cancel them.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
Alexandra? Oh, okay. I'm saying, am I saying it right or what? Is someone here?
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Honorable members of council, good evening, happy new year. My
New
name is
Year.
Alexander Marescu. I am the division director at Immigration Affairs at the Department of Health and Human Services. I'm here to present a resolution for the receipt of grant funding of $12,000. It is resolution
10.19.
Resolution 23-020, 10.20. We are accepting a grant. We've received a grant from the New Americans campaign to put together a toolkit to support other municipalities in creating what we have modeled here in Jersey City under the leadership of Mayor Fulop and Director Flanagan. Jersey City is the only municipality in the whole of the territory of our country that offers free legal immigration services to its residents, the only city in the whole country that does this. And we are partnering with the New Americans campaign to put together a toolkit to capacitate other municipalities in that effort.
Congratulations, Jersey City.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Silo?
Evening, Council. How are you? I'm going to read 4 agenda items. They have to do with mortgage discharge. The first one being agenda item number 10.14, resolution 23-014. This one pertains to 20 Wade Street in Jersey City, who has reached this 10-year affordability period and is requesting a discharge of mortgage. The next one is agenda item number 10.15, resolution 23-015. This is for 248 Fulton Avenue. They also reached their affordability period and are requesting a discharge. Third one is 10.17, resolution 23-017. 276 Linden Avenue have also reached an affordability period and is requesting a discharge. And my last one is agenda item number 10.18, resolution 23-018, 48 New Street also reaches 10 years affordability period and is requesting a discharge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agnes?
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Agnes Theodosio, Program Director at DCD. I have only one resolution to present to you today. Agenda number 10.16, resolution number 23-016. This is for simple discharge. Property address 1209 Summit Avenue. It's for unit 211. This is for one of the older programs for emerging market unit. The property is being sold to a new owner.
Questions?
Thank you.
Oh.
Good afternoon, Council President, Council members. Paul Bellenboyer, Health and Human Services, presenting on 10.21. This is to receive reimbursement from the Hyacinth AIDS Foundation. You'll recall that last year we had an emergent epidemic situation of monkeypox. Vaccines were scarce. The state, in its wisdom, decided to award Hyacinth vaccines, but they didn't have the capacity to deliver them. So we partnered with them to vaccinate over 2,000 people and end the epidemic in Jersey City. This is reimbursement from Hyacinth for nursing and other support costs in that effort. Thank you.
Paul?
Yes.
Oh, did you get a hold of Pam on that issue you called me about? I was driving, I couldn't talk to you.
Yes, Councilman, and we talked a bit and agreed to talk further offline.
On. Any.
Good evening, Council. I'm here on agenda number 3.4, ordinance 23-004. Long story short, this is a parking lot that's next to Duncan Hardware. It was sold to a private owner back in 2000 at a lower price on the condition that it be kept for public parking purposes. The owner would now like to develop the property and is requesting a modification of the deed restriction. The modification of the deed restriction would require them to keep at a minimum the number of public parking spaces that are currently there at the same number accessible to the public.
You said in the beginning, say that again. In the beginning, it was purchased.
So it used to belong to the parking authority. It was a municipal lot right next to Duncan Hardware. They sold it to, I believe it was the owners of Duncan Hardware for a lower price. It was a below market price with the condition that it could only be used for the purpose of parking automobiles.
So so we're not changing the purpose because they're keeping the same spaces and then building on top?
Correct.
Legal is, I mean, is that?
They'll be making a profit now, could we? Yeah. Simple.
I mean, yeah, that is permissible, I think.
It is permissible,
Nothing
yes.
That would.
Sorry. I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
I'm
Yes,
just
it's legally
saying
permissible.
because I don't know what the rate is, but they got it at a reduced rate contingent upon these restrictions. Now I'm 20-some years later, you're changing a game, but you've received the benefit by getting it at a reduced rate. So now it's look like they're just playing with the gray area saying, well, if it's 20 spaces there, we'll keep 20 spaces, but you stand to make a lot of money.
Well, right now they can't do anything with the property at all except let people park on it. That's the purpose of the modification of the deed restriction. So the thought was, as long as they're keeping the same number of parking spaces there to be made available to the public, then it's fine to build on it because it's not losing the intended use.
No, my issue is that you receive this parcel of land at a reduced rate contingent upon X, Y, and Z. Now, 20 years later, is like now whoever brought it is receiving a higher benefit because they're going to develop it and put whatever they're going to put on it. In the city, we receive nothing.
Well, we're keeping the public parking.
He understands that. He understands that you're keeping it, but I see his point though.
Can I say,
Go
I think this is Ward B. I just want to give maybe I met with you, Councilwoman. Is there anything you want to share with us?
As described, this is usually what happens in these situations is that the owner will ask to buy the lot outright and develop it entirely. So what we're saying is we are keeping the terms of the original deal, which is to have those spaces open free to the public, which they are currently, but making the modification to allow for them to build on it should they choose. So the deal is that these are still going to be public, free parking spaces unless there is some, unless planning says something differently, but right now, all that it can be is a parking lot.
So
And so the one benefit though to some development is that there are free parking spots to the public for all of retail to use in that area, which is very, very tight, as we all know, right? And they cannot develop that first floor as anything other than public parking. That's it. I mean, I understand your point, but again, this is like a property sale, and there's also opportunity then for them to add additional retail should they choose in the area, which we also can use to make the neighborhood more walkable. So I think that I understand your point, but we've had the conversations. I've spoken with legal about it. I've spoken with the owner of the property about it, and I've consulted some of the residents about it. And so long as the parking spots remain, they're comfortable with that.
Just to clarify, the parking spaces are not required to be free under the old agreement or this.
Say that again, John, I couldn't hear.
But currently they are used as free spots.
Okay.
Right.
I don't
So
think
now-
that's a requirement of the deed restriction, though. That might be what they're doing. In our current deed restriction, as it's going to be amended, it's not forbidding them from being able to charge the public access.
Wait a minute. Right.
All right, so then maybe I misunderstood that. I was under the impression that it was going to be as it is with the spots available free to the public.
We could strike that line that says they can charge a
Yeah,
fee.
if we can strike that line, that would be great.
Okay.
And then one more question. Are there, well, I guess maybe you're not at this phase yet, right? Because you're just saying that you're giving them the option to build if they wanted to. So they don't have any current plans now, right? Okay, because is there a space for them to, if they did build, to add parking for the residents that would be in that building? In addition to the 20.
I
public
don't know if
spaces?
they've formally submitted anything to the planning board yet. In a email that they sent me, the number of parking spaces they're planning to build with whatever they're proposing at the moment, it's more than the minimum that we have in the deed restriction, but I don't believe anything has been submitted to the planning board.
Let me see something. Gene is behind you. I seem like he keep holding up his hand. Is there something you can give us clarity on here?
One thing. When the Park Authority, this is way back in 2000, Ron Eberle's here today from Duncan Hardware. It's a company that's been in Jersey City. It's an institution since 1949. Back in 2000, great question. It was a bid. It was not at a reduced rate. There was a bid for the parking lot. At that time, he bid $101,000 and won the bid. But I do think it's a great question. They will be public spaces, and the reason he bid on the project in the first place was to have parking for his Duncan Hardware, of course. And 10 of the spaces are used for Duncan Hardware. But he did pay $101,000 back in 2000. I just want to put that on the record.
But I see what his concern is. If they decide to build apartments, let's say, I don't know the zone area, let's say they want to go up 6 stories, I don't know. So that'll mean they can get like maybe 15 or 20 units, just saying. That means with the rent in that area, it has to be like almost 2,100 because rent is so high. And because they were able to bid on this property at 100,000, which back then probably was fair. Now that the cost of living has gone up so high, and they'll be able to collect rent, all we are settling with, because they have to come back to us because that was the agreement, is to make sure they have the 20 spaces of parking for free. Now, there's no clarity in there once they build, because I'm quite sure there got to be a vision in mind because they're coming back. It has to be something in mind that they want to build apartments or something. So there's nothing in there saying that those 20 spots will only be allotted to the public and not the residents. Because then I could see the residents battling with the public because it's public space. So how can we make sure that we remain with the public space? Because we seem like we can't get anything extra from the apartments up there because that was the agreement. So could there be something in there that said, okay, it must remain 20 spaces? I'm just saying for public. And if they decide to build residential, then they have to make sure that they cover that residential and on another floor or something. I don't know. This is a good question.
That's something that could be put in front of the planning board, sure. The only language we have in here is the minimum of 34 public spaces. That's it.
That's just our concern. That's it. Can't get anything from it based on what the agreement is, but want to make sure those spaces remain public and not flip over to residential in some way. And they say, look, we still covering our minimum here, you know, because that happens. Now the public will be fighting over a space with the residents, and the residents say, I got a right to it because I live here. Then it'd have to come back to us anyway, and then we stuck because we don't agree to it. So that's our concern. Hey, John.
So
So
how do we want to address that?
we want to make sure there's something in the clause
Yeah, so if we can strike the item that we had discussed previously to make sure that they stay free, open to the public.
Mhm.
And because that's really the biggest concern
Yeah.
is that, you know, we would have the same issue with the development project if it were coming up next to it anyway. But either way, just to make sure that they don't become private spots for the residents that are in the building. That's the big concern.
Okay.
Which is sort of, I know, outside of your purview here, but
Right.
I'll also have that conversation with planning as well. Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Vivian. And Stacy.
There we
Yeah.
So we are here just to follow up.
The second read.
Want me to read?
Yeah, second reading, 4.10 on our sheet. Ordinance 22-112.
Want me to read this, Sean? I don't know
Say it again.
you reading it?
You want me to read it into the?
I'm just asking, is that my job now?
I can read it into the record. It's 4.10 we're talking about?
Yeah.
It's ordinance 22-112 is an ordinance authorizing a lease agreement between the Jersey City Housing Authority, Garden State Community Development Corporation, and the City of Jersey City for the property at 514 Newark Avenue for the purpose of providing services to people experiencing homelessness.
let's end the discussion. I want this pulled. This is totally out of order. And if you read this here, Vivian, Stacy, the people do not want it. People in Hudson Gardens don't want it. You've had no meetings with us in the neighborhood, no meetings with anybody. This issue has to be pulled right now.
I'm happy to respond on behalf
Yes,
of
go
the
ahead.
Jersey City Housing.
Look, Vivian, we have enough problems in the neighborhood right now. We don't need any more. And the issue this issue should have come to us, and you should have come to me personally with this, instead of just coming into the neighborhood and saying you want to put more homeless into the neighborhood. We have problems in the gardens, and it's out of control. And as far as I'm concerned, Garden State Episcopal should get out of Hudson Gardens and go someplace else. And that's the feelings of most of the people in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Councilman,
We know how the councilmen
We're
feel.
just asking that we allow the director some respect to present.
Would you let me? I will.
But
Don't
we
you
have enough
worry.
problems with what
Okay.
they've done already.
Rich, she's here. We asked them to come last time. We brought up the concerns of the resident based on what this resolution is, based on what Director Flanagan expressed to us. This was two separate issues, correct? Now, Director, I appreciate you here, so.
Thank you very much, Council President and the council. So the Jersey City Housing Authority is the landlord to the drop-in center that serves people who are experiencing homelessness. That drop-in center is operated by Garden State by contract with the city and the county. It is a HUD requirement, and it has existed at the site of Hudson Gardens now for, I want to say, well over a decade. So this is not a new drop-in center. It's a drop-in center that actually exists and that the city and the county both fund. Back in 2021, the city approved capital dollars to make the improvements, which include making it ADA compliant and reconfiguring the space, because this space was originally office space. It was not housing. It was office space for the Housing Authority's Section 8 program, which later moved to the Marion Gardens headquarters, which is JCHA headquarters. So the space was never adapted for its current use. It doesn't have an elevator. You know that people who experience homelessness have higher rates of disability. This will allow us to put a lift in the space. We're going to be reconfiguring, well, actually the city will be reconfiguring based on a design that has been approved by all parties, the space, so that it also includes a space for showering, laundry, and for meals, because right now Garden State has food there and it's really not set up for food. And we as the landlord want to make sure that food is provided in an appropriate setting. The other thing that I should mention is that our board and HUD have approved this, and then the city approved it and has already earmarked $2 million. So it is not a new issue. This was done back in 2021. All that is on the table today is for the city to take over the property. And I think, on behalf of the agency, is that it will address better some of the concerns that the councilman has about the space by having the city there. The last thing that I will say about it is that the Jersey City Housing Authority held its public hearing on its annual plan in December. We received comments from Hudson Gardens Resident Council. This was not raised as an issue. I can also tell you that annually we have to present a crime report to the state of New Jersey, and we don't have Hudson Gardens is a rare site that doesn't have crime. The one that was submitted last in July, and I'm happy to forward it to the council members, shows 0 crime there. We're very, very interested in continuing conversations with the community. We hold lots of meetings and do a lot of community engagement, but our request is for the city to move forward with what it funded back in 2021 and which has been approved. And we will happily continue to sit down. And in fact, the leadership, the asset management division is scheduling a community meeting on the 23rd, not simply for this issue, but part of what we normally do. We typically meet with the police, the community, and address any of those concerns. So I will leave it there, and I'm available for further questions.
Vivian, as far as you're saying no crime, you're way off track there. I had the director up there of the police. We have a lot of problems with the people that are coming to Garden State Episcopal. As far as I'm concerned, Garden State Episcopal, we sent numerous people to them, homeless people, people in the neighborhood that needed help, and they've done nothing. And we're having problems now with them. Look, as far as Hudson Gardens go, we've been complaining about locks on the doors, this and that. We've had a lot of issues there, Vivian. People have been complaining and nothing's been done. And that Hudson Gardens is a tremendous asset to the neighborhood. The people are great. The people do not want this. We have these people that are coming to Garden State Episcopal, going to the bathroom in the street, going to the bathroom in Hudson Gardens, causing problems in the neighborhood. And this does not belong in a Hudson Gardens community center like that. I mean, we have enough issues up there right now.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Just a quick question. I know for example, in Marion Gardens, we have a fixed post there in conjunction with the police department to help with some of the issues that we have there. If the city and the housing authority were to go into agreement with this, would we be able to do something similar to kind of help mitigate some of these problems that you may be talking about, Councilman?
No, the problem is they.
Wait, let Vivian answer. She has to answer if we could work together, Rich.
I appreciate what she's saying, but what they come out into the neighborhood, they cause trouble in Hudson Gardens, they cause trouble in the neighborhood, they steal packages, and they don't belong there. And we have enough problems. We don't need any additional problems in the community.
Director, could you answer that?
Thank you. We, as you know, we have a shared services agreement with the city, and we have our own JCPD housing unit. We always welcome collaboration with the city on safety matters and would be open to conversations about how the city might want to enhance security around the space.
And then one other follow-up question. Let's say we do not go into this contract. Would that also remove Garden State Episcopal, or would they still be there because it's a HUD requirement?
They will still be there. They are, you know, I think it's, I don't want to say confusing. They're two separate issues. The city has a contractual arrangement with Garden State. They select annually who provides this service. Right. With the city coming in and leasing the space instead of the nonprofit, I believe it will help solve whatever concerns are there. We actually feel this is highly responsive to the concerns that the councilman is raising.
So in essence, these services are already there. You already do them. This is essentially just putting more skin in the game by being the landlord, quote unquote, versus Garden State.
We will have more services there. Our goal is to make sure that it's an appropriate setting. We are a public health. We did this in collaboration with the Department of Health, and the city and its mandated service. We believe that by making this a better environment to perform these services, we will be, that our tenant, which will be the city working with Garden State, will be able to provide these services in a way that is more appropriate and responsive to some of these concerns.
Vivian, every morning, a busload of them are dropped off at Garden State Episcopal. They come into the neighborhood, they cause problems. No, this is no good. This is hurting Hudson Gardens, hurting the community around Newark Avenue, and we don't want any more of them in the neighborhood causing problems. As far as the police go, we've been asking the police for the last 10 years to do something with the problems from Dickinson alone. Nothing has been done.
Stacy, you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I did speak to the public safety director today to confirm what I said earlier about the crime issue. So I do want to confirm that.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. Half the crimes are not even bothered being reported.
I will email our latest report to the state about crime to all the council members.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? Sure. Sorry. Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, the quick question. I think you had said this, Director. I just wanted to confirm. You said you have a already scheduled meeting with the Hudson Gardens tenants January 23rd. Is that right?
On the 25th, but it's not
25th.
about this.
Right.
We had a public hearing.
Yeah.
In December. We
Right.
received commentary from Hudson Gardens.
Right.
The commentary that received on our annual plan did not include any of these concerns. However, they did raise concerns about some other issues that are really housing authority issues,
Sure.
right? About, cleanliness in the hallway, things that we have to deal with. And we regularly meet with resident councils throughout the year. So that's what the meeting is. It is not a meeting about this project. It is responsive to concerns that resident council leadership brought to our attention at the public hearing. And I have the transcript. This was not an issue raised.
Sure. And would you, Housing Authority, as well as just community, be open to having a meeting, a secondary meeting, which would be specific to any, and there could be none, any impacts that the expansion of the drop-in center would have?
Absolutely. And this issue has come up and we've
Sure.
talked about it and we continue to talk about it. We hold regular meetings across sites with resident council members throughout the year,
Okay, great.
and we'll do so again.
Vivian, I want to give you a copy of this here.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have a copy of the letter that you sent on Friday. I have it. Yeah, I have
Okay.
that. Thank you, Councilman.
Read it.
Okay.
No, you're not
Any more
dealing-
questions? Because this is the time to ask. They're both here. Any questions?
In addition to both Director Brady Phillips and I, we started this project with Carmen Gandula when she was the division director in community development. This has been a 4-year process. And this is the final piece of this long process. Without this, during the winter, we don't really have a way to support homeless outreach services. So right now we have 2 buses that travel around the city. Oftentimes, someone calls out sick. We don't have a CDL driver. In fact, sadly, one of our CDL drivers passed away on Saturday. So now we're down another driver. So we do need a stable location to provide outreach services. And we started this program in 2019 when we were asked to do something about
Homelessness.
congregating at Journal Square. So this was a way to bring people off of Journal Square, get them showers, get them food, get them a place indoors, which they currently don't have because there was not enough space. So we were taking over some space because that would be a way to give people dignity, have them sit at a table, provide them appropriate services as they're waiting for the additional services from Garden State Episcopal. As it is right now, like I've mentioned several times, due to COVID, it is very difficult to have so many people inside an office space. And because we have an increase in need, this isn't just a homeless.
Let me ask this question here so we could move on here. because I know I don't want to keep anybody. Because we are turning this over to the city will have more authority and more say in it. Am I correct?
Yes.
The reason why I'm asking, because I know there was an issue one time on Claremont with that homeless
Yes.
program too. But we couldn't have much say because we didn't have nothing invested in it. I think part of homelessness and for those who struggle with this issue, if the city is not invested in it, there's not much a city can do. So the more the city is invested into it, then we can have more of a say on how things should operate. Yes, they do need more policing, and so I think that's something that we're going to have to figure out as a city, because we'll have more to say, we're more invested in it. Because when it comes to homelessness, we have advocates for homelessness, and I hear it across the city. Okay, if we put it here, you got a group coming out. If you put it there, you got a group coming out. But then yet, people want us to deal with homelessness. I think homelessness is something that we all have to look at, and I think it's something that we all have to get on board with and just make the residents feel safe, because homelessness is here. It's sad, but homelessness is here. So we got to do the best that we can do. And if the city has more authority in it, then we can have a more say in it. And I think we need to start having a more say, especially when we start giving public service to residents who desperately need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. And
I do want to
tell
add,
you that the Housing Authority is very committed to working collaboratively with the city.
You know,
so
saying the housing police, and yet we have more problems with Dickinson High School going into the gardens and nothing's done. I mean, this does not belong there. Look, I want to see the homeless taken care of. They have to be taken care of, especially in Journal Square. They're all over the place. Something should be done, but they do not belong in the housing gardens where people are there. You have a lot of senior citizens and they cause trouble. They go in there, they take their shower, maybe go feed them and everything. Then you let them out in the neighborhood and they cause problems for the people in the community.
Go ahead, Councilman Gilmore.
so these are homeless people from throughout the county or just Jersey City?
Actually, the majority are from Jersey City, but it does serve the majority of the homeless. If you look at the statistical numbers, are from Jersey City. They will receive people from outside of Jersey City because it's part of the continuum of care, which is specific HUD funding that the city and the county receive to provide services for people experiencing homelessness. If there were not an appropriate place to do intake, the city would have to return those funds because it is a condition of those federal funds.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, next. That's it.
That's it.
Standing.
Yeah, Sean, before we go on to regular business, I just want to address the VA with a couple of things. This past week, the payroll for our public safety, specifically our police department, was abysmal. Personally, I want to thank Shirley and Nellie from the Treasury that actually came down on a weekend to help out and fix the craziness that we had. You know, my concern is that we've had vendors that actually, you know, put in for this, you know, position. We actually had 12 of them, and Unicorn was like the very last one. And when you look at their reviews, it's just sad. Is there a way, like, you know, what can you update us on that payroll? You know, what's going on there?
Yep, sure, Councilman. So we can get onto the procurement process. We'll have a memo issued. I'm not sure how many people actually bid or what the process was there. As the appointing authority, I'm not allowed to sit on that. So, but we can share the review with the council. So this last pay period was the first pay period we went live with a new system. I think everybody knows that there was some growing pains with the old system and failed data, and you know, we really had to make a move. We built this program out for over a year, almost successfully implemented all of the civilians. I know there was some issues with 911 dispatch as well as police. The bigger issue with police was that we were dealing with over 25 schedules due to specialized units and different technicalities that the finger punch system, you if someone got a finger punch system and then they went to a separate assignment and they punched out somewhere else, it wasn't recognized properly. So I do like to thank Treasury staff. They were here all weekend. I was here majority of the weekend as well. We did get supplemental checks out. There are still some pending issues. We had 4 Zoom calls with the members of public safety as well as the union bosses sitting in my office with me for 14 hours over the weekend. So we had another debriefing this morning, and we're committed that this won't happen again at the next pay period. We have mechanism in place to make sure it doesn't. As we saw, there weren't necessarily these issues with fire department, so we're going to follow that same model. And we're committed to getting it right this time, and we can assure that anybody that had pay discrepancies this pay period, it'll be reconciled, and then the next pay period, it should be fine. The city's also been forward thinking and providing travel reimbursement for any officers that came up over the weekend to get their checks. And we do apologize sincerely to the police department and public safety, and we're ensuring that it won't happen again.
So is it safe to say that if it happens again, they'll be highlighted and maybe move on to the next vendor?
Yeah, I firmly believe that if it happens again, there'll be an issue with the vendor and potentially some staff within the city.
John,
Go ahead, go ahead.
oh, what happened if, I don't know, officers had their mortgages on auto pay and they got all type of with,
We worked with the council.
Are
I'm
we
sorry.
rectifying, are we?
Yeah, we worked with the unions to any overages or any bank fees, the city's gonna honor as well. Yeah, we're doing everything we can to reconcile it, and we apologize, but this system, when it works efficiently, will be far superior than anything we've ever had before, and it'll almost be on autopilot. It's just the growing pains of getting it inserted.
You're confident in that we won't have this issue again?
I'm confident that we have a default mechanism to make sure it works.
That's the big, I'm
right.
glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because, some people live paycheck by paycheck, and, when that plan B doesn't kick in and worries kick in, then we have a problem. But thanks for that.
There is a default mechanism that, just defers back to salary.
Okay,
We can work on that. We are adamant that make sure that we do the punch in for accountability and transparency. But if that has to come in a second tier, that's what we'll do.
could I ask you a question? Because you said y'all was building this out over a year. Who was trained on this system? I'm just curious, because I know even when it came to the council division, it was no one specifically, that went to the training. I know they sent, the video, but I'm saying when you go to a new system, there always should be someone designated from each department to learn that system, just in case something, is not entered correctly, instead of trying to call the 5 people that was trained on this system and they overwhelmed. It seemed like that pushed a lot back too, and the communication wasn't there, like IT versus payroll, because I was here. They were not communicating because IT knew that this was showing up in the system, and then when I went to payroll said, well, no one told us, and yeah, and they was,
Yeah, so the way
everybody was upset. and I
Payroll
get
was
it.
upset.
So my thing is though, when we do go to a new system, especially when it affects everyone, why isn't there someone from each department designated to learn that system? Because I've been in systems in the hospitals, and there's always been someone in that department that learned the system, because if something happens, then everyone would go to that person. Okay, this is how you enter this. This is who you need to call. It was a liaison there. But in the city, we did not have that. It probably was about 5 people that knew this system, and they was overwhelmed, and they was not picking up that phone.
Yeah, so just to touch on that, Council President, we do have 5 additional
what's
training
that?
sessions going forward. But the way that we organized it is that, just like we did with the fiscal officers, we have HR representatives in each department. So that's why most of the departments got it right. Unfortunately, it was probably an oversight of City Hall, because we don't necessarily have our own fiscal officers or HR staff. So we do have what we call floaters, and they just kind of help out side to side. So what we're going to do is assign them permanently to, say, the clerk's office in the council, or the business administrator in finance. This way we have a direct contact to go to, and they'll be cross-trained, so there'll always be 2 people.
Okay,
It'll probably, just to be in honesty, it'll probably take 2 or 3 weeks to.
No,
roll
I
out.
understand a new system. I get it. I really do. I understand a new system, but I just couldn't get it when they told me they couldn't write no manual checks, but I found out that they could, because when I went to one department, they said, well, we can't do manuals. You know, you have to mail it out and you have to come 24 hours. So tell them to wait till Tuesday. And I couldn't see telling a person who worked, you know, to wait till Tuesday, because some people really do live from paycheck to paycheck. So I stayed here to make sure that one person got that, got their salary, which to me was absolutely ridiculous when they told me that, you know, they would have to wait till Tuesday. I guarantee you, if she had anything lined up that was automatic, it bounced across the board.
Not only that, I don't want, because there were many officers that took on to social media and were ripping the city apart. It was pretty embarrassing, but I don't want anything to happen to any type of retaliation to happen with these officers that were just emotionally pissed of what was going on.
The Medicare checks on.
No, the effort right now, Councilman, is just to get them paid. I mean, that was, there's no repercussions for our error on their side.
Is the finger punch system the best system, do you think, especially with the police department? I did see a lot of complaints that it is all on them, especially when you account for people who are doing investigations, traveling, working off and on hours.
So I think there's like 7 or 8 different mechanisms we could use. We're trying to stay away from either the PIN or the swipe card, because obviously we could share our swipe cards, or, and I'm not saying that the police are doing that, just as a mechanism of punching in and out. So what we're doing right now, which is a little more complicated, but we think it'll work, is geolocation. So you basically create a center, like 1 block radius of City Hall, that if you punch in on a mobile device or a computer, it'll register that you're here and working.
Phone dies.
Yeah, we did run by eye scanner and all that type of stuff, but some of the unions were reluctant, and we respect that.
On the Medicare checks, I don't see them on here.
Yeah, it'll be on the addendum.
What?
It'll be on the next, on the claims list. It's not a resolution. Sorry about it.
It's another fiasco.
You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Go ahead, Sean, take it from the top.
Okay. So on item 3.1 was touched on earlier. Item 3.2, City Ordinance 23-002 is an ordinance supplementing Chapter 3 of the Jersey City Municipal Code, Article 2, Section 6 and 8, and Chapter 53, Section 8, requiring reports to the Municipal Council regarding overtime compensation and statutory extension of the date for the submission of the budget and annual financial statement or completion of the annual audit.
Go ahead, James.
Sure, yeah, I can explain to the colleagues what this is. It was an attempt to address and use our oversight powers to prevent some of the mistakes that occurred in last year's budget. It does a couple things. There are sort of 3 documents that the budget office has to produce. There's the annual budget, there's the annual financial statement, and there's the annual audit. And each of those has a statutory deadline that the state sets, and the state has the power to extend the deadline. But what this basically says is, obviously we receive those documents, which we do already for the audit and the budget, but this would add the annual financial statement and just make sure that that is a document that we as the council formally receive. And then second is, if deadlines are missed, so a state statute deadline is hit, but we haven't submitted the budget, then we're asking for a written report from the CFO to the council to say what happened, and then when is your estimate on when it will be received, and then updates every 30 days thereafter, with the goal being for us to be able to get accurate information and stay on top of what's happening if those things are missed. And I would bring up for this case the annual financial statement from last year, in which the deadline was missed earlier in the year in the spring. We didn't know about it until the budget hearings in July. And then when the submission happened in August, we didn't know about that until the amended budget came before the council. So it's designed to sort of prevent that from happening. And I know that there'll be good faith efforts to make sure that doesn't happen in the future, but I also think we want to ensure and put that in writing. And so that's the core of the ordinance. And the separate additional section is to put in the ordinance monthly overtime reports from all the departments, so that we're getting monthly reports on what overtime is expended to ensure that we're staying on top of that.
Okay, questions?
Yeah, so a couple of questions. I mean, the first part with the with the audit and the budget and those statements. That's all very clear, and I think that that is a good idea. I do want to know a little bit more about these overtime reports, because as somebody who's been in charge of compliance for gathering those reports, it can be a lot of work. And I know that this necessarily doesn't have to be an ordinance, but who would be responsible for collecting the reports? How would they be disseminated? What is the purpose of going through them when we are going to be going into these budgeting meetings with the fiscal officer and the directors? I just kind of feel like that one piece of it, I'm not opposed to it, but that kind of feels a little bit premature when we're already going to be doing this work and understanding even what the overtime needs are for said departments. So it's, yeah, maybe not quite the most elegantly phrased question,
that's fine.
but I would like to know a little bit more about the plan and purpose.
Yeah, and amenable to any kind of language changes and adoptions. The way the ordinance written is, it puts it on the department director. And then the goal is to identify if basically there's overspending on overtime. So basically, January, we have the OT budget from the temporary budget. It's just making up numbers. It's $100,000. So divide by 12. Math might be wrong, but it should be $8,000 a month or $12,000 a month to get up to the number. My math's slightly off, so you'll forgive me. And then you say, okay, well, overtime was overexpended in January. We spent $20,000. So that's in the report. So now we know. Okay, now we can talk to the department director. Hey, that's that was because there was a specific event, and we're actually still on track to meet our annual goal. Or maybe you say, okay, well, January, February, March, we've spent 40% of the OT budget, but it's only 25% of the year. Now we've identified that. So now we can work with the budget office on our temporary budgets and then the annual budget to both adjust for that, but also maybe, kind of push back and say, hey, we're not just going to increase your budget because you're overspending. We're actually now going to either potentially reduce that overtime budget and you have to come up with something. Nothing in this gives us the power to approve any specific overtime, right? That should be administrative. That shouldn't be us. It's simply like a tracking mechanism.
And I understand the piece about the responsibility of generating the report is on the directors, but I mean to the reception in the council office, right?
Sure.
Who would be responsible for collecting, disseminating, and then if we are going through these reports, working through that piece of it.
Sure. So I would say that the council administrator is the recipient, but I'm also happy to, amend, and if we want to send them directly to the committees that are being worked on, as long as those committees exist. I think that's a strong option as well.
Have you spoken with the council administrators to see if they can manage that? Because again, this
Sure.
goes back to compliance, and that is not necessarily as easy a task with all of the follow-up and everything else. So I just want to make sure that before we're putting responsibility onto council staff, that they can actually do it, because in addition to that, everybody's being asked to cut 15%. So, it could potentially create a scenario where it's a lot of work for not a lot of benefits.
Can they?
And also, no, sorry. The burden on department heads as well. I don't know if you've discussed that at all, or if you can present any of that, or even with the business administrator. I think it'd be a little bit more simple to have payroll give us a report. Two, I think going with compliance, are we allowed to see employees, their names, the amount that they're getting? Would that be a conflict in any way? Also, I'm trying to think of the overtime that we saw during the budget season. Would that unveil something that, like an investigation that's going on that
Sure.
the public isn't privy to?
All good questions. Sorry, do you want to go to yes, Evan?
If you want to respond, and then I'll ask, or.
Well, you add and I'll respond.
Okay. I mean, all of this information is publicly available if you fill out an Oprah request, and if they're spending the taxpayer dollars, they should be held accountable. Ultimately, they should be tracking this without us having to put it into law. But because we have had instances where they haven't, we need to start tracking it, and they should send it to the entire council. That's my opinion, and we should be keeping track of this. Ultimately, the power of the purse comes from us. So if we're not tracking it and they're not tracking it, we're going to end up in the same situation we were last year.
Yeah, so I think I'm amenable and welcome making any changes. And I think if we think these specific employees is too much it is technically operable, but yes, if we believe that's too much, that's not the core. The core is making sure on a monthly basis, we are being kept apprised of how spending in each department is matching what they've been allocated. And I mean, we now have, I've been on the council 5 years. We have 5 straight years of OT over expenditure. So, the phrase, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result. So I think those are well taken in terms of, is the council administrator the right person? Is the individual personnel too much? I'm happy to spend the next 48 hours working with the whole council on amending those. But the core for me that to want to present is, a public report on a monthly basis from each department that shows expenditures versus what's been budgeted for.
Is there a specific department that you're concerned about? I mean,
Right.
I'm
That's what we
assuming
just need to get
that
to.
what we're getting to is the Department of Public Safety, right?
Mhm.
And they have a high budget, but they have a lot of overtime, and a lot of their overtimes are spent on posts where community were very, very vocal on having fixed posts in their neighborhood. Is this something that we're willing to alter and then say, we can limit the fixed posts that the community wanted? Is that something we would do?
So I think to Councilman Salay's point, it's it's transparency. So, and I've said this in budget hearings with the public safety director and saying, look, there's a unified commitment for public safety. And if he comes to us and says, hey, I need to keep this neighborhood safe, I need more overtime, I want it authorized, I don't think there's anyone on this council that's going to say no. However, what the concern for me was, seeing the 2022 budget and seeing a $3 million over expenditure for overtime in 2021. And, now we had to raise taxes an additional amount in 22 to cover this over expenditure in 21. Then in this last year, there was a $3 million over expended from what was budgeted. Now, if we agree and say, look, that 13 million, it was 10 million versus 13. If we agree and say, hey, that 13 million was exactly what should have been spent to keep people safe, great. But that, that power is it's kind of being taken away from us because it's basically being done and then just presented to us as a finished product and saying, you told us 10 million, we overspent, figure it out.
So one more thing that comes into mind is, let's go on another angle and let's just discuss traditions in Jersey City, like these parades we have in Jersey City. Puerto Rican Day Parade, St. Patrick's Day Parade. We usually, these officers make overtime in these parades. Are we looking to limit these things, or are we looking to make the parade committees pay 100% for this?
No, I mean, we have a lot of that budgeted in, right? What we're looking to do is make sure that we're not overexpending the budget, right? We're not taking taxpayers' money, and we've done that for years, and we're going to continue to do it. It's in our budget. If we're going to look at the policy, that's a separate issue. This is just the transparency in the numbers and making sure we're not, the council's not surprised, in the order of millions of dollars, right? Not in the order of thousands of dollars.
I think we should have a closed session, and a lot of things can be explained without, I'd like to say a lot of things, but I'm not going to say them publicly. But I will explain to you, if we have a closed session that's kept privately, why a lot of the waste is happening.
Sure.
Well, I think what we should do, I see the intent of the ordinance and things like that, but maybe we should have a conversation before we present this, because I could see right now that there are concerns and there's certain things that we can say, in a closed session versus what we can say in the public. So that's my suggestion with this ordinance, because it's one department. That's what this is. We see it basically, because even with the information that we got, that we asked all departments to cut 15%. I don't see why we did that, because it's not one size fit all. Because we got small departments that are just pretty much hemorrhaging just to survive. So to me, that was not a right thing to do neither. I think what we need to do is have conversations with this council and be at those meetings when the director and the fiscal officer is meeting to discuss that. A lot of times the council is not there, so we have to come up with mechanisms to make sure that we're there. So I think, just like even what Rich said, we should have a closed session, because there are certain things that we do want to say that we cannot say, instead of just trying to write this blanket and say, okay, give this to us. And the truth is though, who's going to follow this data? Who's going to make sure this is done? Because it's a lot of work. And I don't want to, at this point, I don't want to just put something on paper to try to get the public to think, okay, we're doing this. And in reality, we're really not doing this because it's overwhelming for us and we can't do it. We don't have the staff to do it. But I do believe this, since we are more engaged in the budget from day one, when the fiscal officer or the finance director start meeting with the departments, one of us should have been at the table. That's my problem. We're not at the table at the beginning. We're always at the table in the middle or at the end. And so maybe if you can see us like working together instead of saying, trying to keep this from them or whatever the case is, I really don't know, but I'm just saying, because it feels like there's certain information that we're not getting. So if you can stop seeing us like that and start seeing us as more of a team here to operate this city, then there's a lot of things that we wouldn't even have to write in paper, but this is why.
Well, if I can just jump in for 1 second, Councilor, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the major concern is with the overtime provision.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is, if it works for the council, next 48 hours, I'll work with the council, and if we come up with something that there's broad agreement with, great. If not, I'm happy to take that clause out and have us meet in a closed session and discuss it, and then just move forward with the provision on the audits and the financial statements and the budget.
Yeah, because the audit, we get it anyway.
Sure.
You know, we do receive the audits anyway.
Sure.
There may be another way to do the overtime piece to have the overtime,
Correct.
the transparency that they give. Don't get me wrong, I'm not
Right.
like, I don't think that this is a bad idea. I just think that if we're going to put this kind of procedure in place, that we really think through the nuts and bolts of it, because that's really where these things tend to fall apart, is in the execution. Like on the theory of it is good. It oftentimes is the execution that isn't. And I know too, like if it is public safety, you know, they're also, you know, anytime an officer does a report or they have to do overtime from, say, an arrest or from another thing that's germane to their job, they have to fill out a report and send it to a supervisor. So that may be another piece of it that we also might want to take a look at if we can. I don't know that we can, but I feel like that one piece of it just needs a little bit more time to marinate is all.
And just to add, you know, with what's been happening for the past couple of days with payroll and its overtime, I mean, I'm pretty sure that, you know, public safety, especially the police department, is probably looking at this meeting right now, and they're saying, wow, here goes another blow that we're going to get on overtime because council members want to curtail our overtime. You know, it's something that we have to be careful with. I get the ordinance, you know, I just think that, you know, we're trying to cook a meal with not all the ingredients, to just make sure that we have everything in place, and, you know, we can definitely discuss it. But this is something that, you know, you don't want to keep on knocking the morale off of the police department all the time. And I think this is going to, you know, they're going to look at this not at the angle that we're looking at it. They're going to look at it as, oh, the city, here goes the city people again, you know, trying to screw us over.
You know, Danny, Scotch Plains just put an advertisement out for any cops in the state of New Jersey that want to come to Scotch Plains. Starting salary, 60,000. We're paying these cops what? We were paying them 37. I think we're paying them 40 now, 40. I mean, they work weekends, holidays, nights, and they're underpaid. And a load of them are leaving, including Danny. Didn't your son leave? You know, they're leaving here because they're not paid properly. And the overtime is what helps them pay their families and be staying.
If that's the case, then we should just increase their salaries. Like, I don't understand. Our job is transparency, oversight, you know, power of the purse. We should be looking at all the departments. It shouldn't be like we're being discharged with the with the powers to essentially look over the finances for the city. And it's like, after last year, the people want answers, people want action. We're not opposed to overtime. We want just to see what it's being spent on.
And I don't think anybody disagrees with that. I just think that we just need to, again, who's somebody who used to do compliance for exactly these kinds of things.
I did compliance too at a
make sure
Fortune 100 company. Like,
Yeah, and I did it for a major retailer and for a gallery. That was a multi-million-dollar gallery. So this is not that kind of conversation. This
I
is just
think
making
though,
sure
we just want to, I don't want us going back and forth, because our intent is to pretty much move the city forward and to make sure that we are transparent. It's just, how do we get to that point? That's what it is. And so just trying to be wise, we need to have a conversation. If it have to be closed session, then we do, because then we have to know how to approach it, because we do want to know, and it is public information. We're not asking for nothing that is not due to us. It's just the how. How do we get there? That's all. That's what it is. I mean, you got two experts here in compliance. All right. So we just need to know how, and that's what we'll get to. We'll get to the how, but we don't have a problem with the audit, but it's just the overtime. How do we deal with that? Because there are other departments and this will affect everybody across the board. We want to make sure all this is done right. That's it. So we'll have that discussion. If we can come to an agreement with that, fine. If not, he'll remove it. He said he would. And so we'll see. That's what you said, right?
On the overtime provision.
The overtime.
Not the whole.
Not
ordinance,
the
the overtime.
whole overtime provision, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to quote you wrong, because
That's
we got
fine.
everybody listening here. I don't want nobody to say, oh, she said this, no.
Just very quickly, on the topic of the closed session, there are a limited class of topics that can be the subject of a closed session. Obviously, I'm happy to work with the council and, see if we can articulate. However, the default is always that, meetings of the council are held in full open session. That being said, that does not stop the council people from speaking to each other individually about questions or concerns. But when, topics come up for, vote, introduction, et cetera, obviously that must all be made public.
Well, we want to make sure, okay? Because as a council, though, I understand what you're saying, but because we really are the stewards over this budget, I think if we need to have a closed session concerning questions that we have, because we don't want to give out the wrong information, I think there's got to be some clause in the law somewhere that says we can have it. Because I've been in this city for 9 years and we had closed session practically on, anything. So now when you're trying to tell us to be careful, I can't see that. That I can't understand, because we are responsible for this budget.
Yeah.
So
well,
we'll figure this out.
And I can work with the council offline and we can figure out the meets and bounds.
So I will,
Go
just to
ahead.
summarize, I will work with, the 8 colleagues and send some revised overtime language. If folks have concerns, I'm happy to hold on the overtime language and work it through. And I'm happy to do a closed session on the OT piece. So, great.
Motion to adjourn.
Sorry, can't do that yet.
Top, my bad.
That's okay. Items 3.3 and 3.4 were touched on earlier. Item 4.1, City Ordinance 22-103 is an ordinance of the Municipal Council of the City of Jersey City, amending the Jersey Avenue Light Rail redevelopment plan to clarify inclusionary zoning requirements. Item 4.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you? Did planning speak with the administration on 4.1? No, okay. I had discussed with Director Marione. One of my questions when it was on first reading was whether an authorizing resolution had been done in our, the new practice that we're doing. And I think she and I confirmed last week that we hadn't done one. So my understanding was this was going to hold until we could do the authorizing resolution, but I didn't discuss with her the exact mechanism. So I just wanted to
Okay,
confirm with you
I'll
guys.
follow up with, but in that event, we would do public hearing, then table, Sean, is that?
So we can hold the public hearing and then table it after the close of the public hearing.
I would defer to you guys on the legal,
talk to
the
director.
MUL, whatever that acronym is.
Yep.
Okay. Item 4.2, City Ordinance 22-104 is an ordinance supplementing Chapter 332, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, Section 332-8, prohibited right turns on red signal to prohibit right turns on red at all times at the intersection of Marin Boulevard and 18th Street, with the exception of northbound approach. Item 4.3, City Ordinance 22-105 is an ordinance supplementing Chapter 332, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 3, Parking, Standing, Stopping, amending Section 332-24, no parking certain hours on Montgomery Street in front of 100 Montgomery Street. Item 4.4, City Ordinance 22-106 is an ordinance supplementing Chapter 332, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 3, Parking, Standing, Stopping, amending Section 332-31, parking restrictions for street cleaning purposes on Bergen Avenue from Van Nostrand Avenue to Sip Avenue. Item 4.5, City Ordinance 22-107 is an ordinance supplementing Chapter 332, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 3, Parking, Standing, Stopping, amending Section 332-31, parking restrictions for street cleaning purposes on 16th Street from Jersey Avenue to Marin Boulevard. Item 4.6, City Ordinance 22-108 is an ordinance supplementing Chapter 332, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 3, Parking, Standing, Stopping, amending Section 332-22, Parking prohibited at all times, and Section 332-24, Parking prohibited certain hours at 675 Monmouth Street, Ivy Primary Prep. Item 4.7, City Ordinance 22-109 is an ordinance supplementing Chapter 332, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 9, Parking for the Disabled of the Jersey City Code, designating reserved parking space at various locations throughout the city. Item 4.8, City Ordinance 22-110 is an ordinance supplementing Chapter 332, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 3, Parking, Standing, Stopping, amending Section 332-24, no parking certain hours on west side of Summit Avenue, 30 feet south of Caucus Road. And item 4.9, City Ordinance 22-111 is an ordinance of the City of Jersey City and the County of Hudson, State of New Jersey, one, authorizing the transfer of the Lowe's Jersey Theater located in the Journal Square 2060 redevelopment area and identified on the tax map of the City of Jersey City as Block 10601, Lot 41 to the Jersey City Redevelopment Agency. Number 2, authorizing the city to provide funding to the Jersey City Redevelopment Agency with the resources necessary to address contingencies. And number 3, appropriating 15 million therefore, and if necessary, authorizing the issuance of up to 15 million bonds or notes of the city to finance the cost thereof.
Wow.
Item 4.10 was touched on earlier. We have 2 speakers listed so far.
Can I, yeah, I mean, Councilman, 4.9, that's your ward, and you mentioned a friend of Lowe's at the last meeting.
I don't know why we're turning it over to Jersey City Redevelopment Agency. That's my objection.
Understood. Quickly, can I ask you a question? I mean, I have the friends, I mean, I think when they were here, they spoke at the meeting in December and said they, cautiously optimistic, but had concerns. Do you know if there's an update from them and where we're at with this?
They never contacted the people from the Lowe's Theater. There was a lot of other issues there, but.
Okay.
That's fine.
Any questions on petitions and communications, items 6.1 through items 6.33? There are no officer communications. Any questions or comments on report of directors 8.1 through 8.5? Hearing none, we have our claims, and as the business administrator articulated before, we're going to have an addendum number 1 to the meeting. As soon as we get that, we will have it posted. On to our resolutions. Items 10.1 through 10.6 were touched on earlier. Item 10.7, City Resolution 23-007 is a resolution appointing Mark Isakoff as a member of the Jersey City Rent Leveling Board. Item 10.8 is a resolution 23-008. A resolution number 1, introducing and approving the 2023 budget of the Jackson Hill Main Street Special Improvement District. Number 2, directing the city clerk to publicly advertise the budget and schedule a public hearing. And number 3, directing the tax assessor to prepare an assessment roll of properties within the district based upon the budget. Council members, if necessary, I will have the director of the Jackson Hill Main Street Special Improvement District in attendance at the caucus when we're going to hold that public hearing and final consideration of the adoption of their budget. Items 10.9 through all the way to 10.30 were touched on earlier. Item 10.31, Resolution 23-031 is a resolution appointing Lenora J. Brown as a member of the Jersey City Medical Center Board of Trustees. Item 10.32, Resolution 23-032 is a resolution appointing Jose Cantanero as a member of the Jersey City Cannabis Control Board. Item 10.33, Resolution 23-033 is a resolution appointing Alexander Hamilton as a member of the Jersey City Redevelopment Board. Rent leveling, sorry. What did I say? I'm sorry about that.
Sean, he created the city, so he should be here now.
You're right. Thank you for that. So Jersey City Rent Leveling Board. Whew. It's all this reading, right, going fast. 10.34, Resolution 23-034 is a resolution authorizing the settlement of a lawsuit, Antoine Morrison versus the City of Jersey City.
I would say both 10.34 and 10.35. There will be memos delivered to the council office tomorrow morning addressing those. If there are any additional questions, I'm happy to address those offline before Wednesday's regular meeting.
Okay, so with that being said, you don't need me to read the last one, so may I have a motion to adjourn at 5:47 PM? Motion made by Councilperson Rivera, seconded by Councilperson Prinzary. On the motion to adjourn at 5:47 PM by acclamation, all council members present, please say aye.
Aye.
We are out of here at 5:47 PM. Thank you so much, everyone. Everyone watching at home, stay safe. And remember, teamwork makes the dream work. Have a great night.
And just say